name is Jarrell, for those of you that care and those of you that do not know me. This is a passion project of mine that has been a long time coming, and I'm so grateful that you are joining me on this journey. I cannot wait for you to hear the stories and the experiences of all the people that have come together to make this happen. And in the process of doing this, I've also learned that not everybody uses the word queer to identify, and I want to acknowledge that. And by no means do I want to generalize the queer or the LGBTQ experience within that umbrella term. However, it is a way that I have identified as a gay man and has been helpful for me in navigating these conversations. Also, in this episode, we'll be talking a lot about what it means to be a professional in the work environment. And a lot of it had to do with belonging and feeling like you had a community of people to support you. And even identifying what does professionalism mean and how do we fit into that as a queer person, or specifically me, a gay person. Do not come at me with the video editing, keep it to yourself and how bad it is, because it is pretty bad. I don't say it's pretty bad. It's just a little shoddy. I am not a professional video editor, so if anybody wants to join me on this team of one to get these videos produced, let me know. I'll gladly hire you. Anyways, here is Queer and Simple, episode 1, Queers at Work.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Queer and Simple. This is our very first episode. I'm super excited to be bringing on 3 very close friends, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hey, my name is Kathy, and my pronouns are she, they, but all my homies use they, them.
I'm Crispin Perez, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hey,
I use he, him.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what it feels like to be a queer person in the professional workplace. And I think we have a really interesting experience together because we've all worked together, and also very specifically, we've all worked in education. So there's that very specific experience. To start off with a question that is open to everybody. And that question is, I want to know a little bit about who you are as a professional versus who you are as a person with like your inner circle.
Okay, yeah, because I'm a teacher, so I feel like I never stop working. I was literally just writing a work email before I got on this call. I feel like, I'm lucky. I think in a lot of ways I'm able to show up authentically as myself at work. I'm out to my coworkers as bisexual, queer. I'm out as non-binary. I came out as non-binary recently to like everybody, and so I don't like the word coming out, but whatever. I announced what was going on, and I changed my work pronouns in my email. So that was like a big deal to me. And we were teaching remotely, and so I changed my pronouns in my Zoom name, and my students noticed. I talked with my students about it, that kind of thing. So I think in some ways I really am able to be authentic about who I am in terms of like my sexual orientation, my gender expression. But I'm also an elementary school teacher, so I think there's aspects of my personality that I'm like, what information is appropriate to disclose to my students, what information is appropriate to disclose to my coworkers who might not be quite friends yet, but just, coworkers, and that kind of thing. So it's a little more tame at work. I think for somebody who is always swearing, making dirty jokes, and just, kind of towing the line of decency.
Same.
Let's say it nicely like that. I definitely, that's very watered down.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like being kind of out loud, outspoken, countercultural, I mean, I would wear this to work. I actually think I'm gonna wear it tomorrow at work.
Show us the whole outfit.
Oh, so
Give us
like,
a little twirl.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
but,
Those are so cute.
And I wear pronoun pins to work. Not all the time. Actually, I have one on my lanyard, but like, so I think there's a lot of ways in which like the identity that I like have at work is a little bit disruptive intentionally, to the status quo. Honey, Please,
Um,
there's company.
my dogs. I think as a queer person, or even as a minority within a majority group, oftentimes you don't do things that are the same as the majority group, right? I think speaking specifically as a queer person in a room full of, heterosexual people, it's like, yeah, the way that I do things, the way that I talk, the way that like I accentuate things, or the way my own experiences, they disrupt the status quo. And
Mhm.
I'd love to know a little bit about like how you've seen that happen in your own experiences, in your own professional lives, and in the workplace.
Okay, well, I'll just say it's good that I'm going first because I'm probably like the least disruptive of this group maybe, and I view that as like something that I want to change, because one of the many reasons I look up to all of you guys is because I feel like you all are super authentic with who you are. And I feel like I can be in some aspects of my personality, but I definitely have grown accustomed to holding back. And so like
Mhm.
it's not disruptive. Like and I see that word in a good way. It's, to me, it's like more like cowering seems like too strong of a word, but it's just, yeah, holding back and like hiding a bit.
You don't want to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the spotlight. I love attention, but I
Mhm.
hate the negative attention. So anything that I think is
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
bring me negative attention,
Mhm.
you see how I
Yeah.
slowed down with my
Yeah.
I was like,
Mhm.
so anything I think is going to give me negative attention, like, I usually hide from. I do think being aware of that, it's something I want to work on, and just like, showing up to any room more authentically, and
Mhm.
like bringing all of aspects of who I am forward.
Do you all feel that being queer brings negative attention?
Kristen,
Yeah, Crispin.
go ahead, honey.
Yes and no.
Mhm.
However, I like the negative attention because I like to do things to kind of start conflict. And I don't know if this is because of my upbringing, but I do like to, stir the pot a little bit, whether it be at home with my family or out in the real world in very conservative neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the disruption is something I've been leaning into a lot more, like since coming out. I came out when I was like 20. I'm 27 now. And it's been a long road. And, then I just kind of have discovered the intersecting identity of being non-binary as well. And so that's like another thing that I just have realized in 2020. And so I think that like, there are moments though when I feel really rewarded by like working towards changing the narrative, or just being more vulnerable and transparent. Like with my students, one of them was like, why does your name say she, they? Like it used to say she, her. Why does it say she, they? And I was like, okay, we're doing this. And so I was like, and I have 46 students. So it was like in a 50-person Zoom. And my co-teacher was there, and my co-teacher is like awesome and super supportive. But I was like, well, you can, if you have pronouns that are she, her, that sometimes means that you feel like you are a woman or a female, not all the time, but sometimes. And when I was born, I was like born as a girl. And so for most of my life, I've used she, her pronouns. I've recently realized that I don't really feel like I'm a girl. I also don't really feel like I'm a boy. I feel like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I don't really know. And so that's why the they is there. They is a pronoun that people can use when they feel like she or her or he or him doesn't really fit for them. And this is like, and I was like, when people call me that way, it makes me feel comfortable in my body, and it makes me feel like what they're like when they talk to me, like they understand who I am. And so like I kind of like paraphrasing, but that's what I said. And I was like, does that make sense? And they were like, yeah. And then they had like, that's it. Then we moved on. But I think it's important for my students to have that know that that's something that exists, because I didn't meet a gay person till like I was 18. Like I was so sheltered by like being brought up in the evangelical church. I didn't know anybody gay. I didn't know anybody. I didn't even know non-binary was a thing. I knew about trans people, but like I didn't know any of them. I didn't have any humanizing experiences with queer people, you know, like that was a really big struggle for me as a kid. And I think if I had known about being binary early on, like I would probably have known I was non-binary before turning 27, you know? So in terms of like showing, like kind of disrupting the status quo, I think it's important. And I also think it's scary. Like it's really taken me like 7 years to kind of come to this place where I feel really comfortable showing, being that vulnerable with like strangers, you know? Because and I do think that in my experience, the educational world is much more accepting than like the evangelical Christian church, which is where I grew up. So to me, it feels like a safer space, but not always a safe space, but a safer space than what I grew up with. So that's helpful as well, I think.
So we've actually all worked together for an organization that we all love and have all grown from, I believe. The organization and the community that I worked in, including these three and then like 20 something other people, were the first group of people that I came out to. And it was a really powerful experience for me. And I'm excited to kind of share that experience with you all. So share with me a little bit about what it's felt like to have an environment where your quote unquote queerness was welcomed and celebrated, and yeah.
Okay, I'm so excited to talk, because this really is like, honestly, you guys have shaped my life so much. I'm not just saying this for the cameras, but
we're not even recording.
But really, like when I met you guys, what was it?
2018 we met.
Like it almost feels like it started a new chapter for me, because I just met like really strong individuals. And also, like, again, not just saying this, but Jarrell, to have you as our boss, our leader, that created this environment for us that was so open and so accepting, like that's a huge difference. And it makes a huge difference.
Jonathan said, I feel like we could have had that magic if we worked at Home Depot, or if we had worked at McDonald's, or if we had worked at some fucking whatever, Starbucks. Like, but I think that at the core of that, what really happened is we had a leader that took time to see us and meet us where we are and build a community from the ground up. And I think that all the camp stuff, the water games, the fucking slip and slide, whatever, the pies to the face, like that shit was really fun. And like, but I think that the feelings that we got from that didn't have anything to do with Galileo. That had everything to do with you. And like honestly, like, and I had a boss that gave a shit, you know, and it's completely destroyed all like future relationships I have with authority figures at work. It's really done a number on my just, you know, my vision of leadership has really been shaped by my experience with having you as one of my leaders. And I think that like that's going to be a metric that I measure leadership with for the rest of my life, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Every interview you go to, they're like, do you have any questions for us? I'm like, yeah. Is my manager going to be a short, brown, Filipino, gay man? No?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can't take the job until
I'm walking.
I just want to add that yes, to everything that Jonathan and Kathy said, I agree as well. Very good leadership, but you not only did you make a safe space for us, but like I learned a lot on how to be a leader myself, as someone who kind of just steps back in the shadow. And I do like attention, but like nearby, not directly towards me.
Collateral attention, yeah.
Yeah, but you make me want to be and I borrow some stuff that I've learned from you to be the best leader I can be to the kids that I work with, just to make sure that they have, a safe space and get that feeling that we all got working with you in Galileo, which was very beautiful.
Oh, y'all made this about me. Okay, I did not ask them to say none of that. Okay, so let's
Put your scripts away now.
Yeah. I think when you are when the leaders themselves are participating in being an inclusive individual for who they are, like embodying it themselves, it's like naturally translated to the people. And I will say, like, yes, you have to systemize it, you have to put structure to it, and you have to make sure that you are taking account for everybody. But I will say that I think a huge part of that inclusive environment that we all created, like I think I am only as good as, the people on my team. The reason you guys were the first group of people that I came out to was because not only was I experiencing transformation in my personal life, but like encountering people that said like, hey, Jarrell, like, yeah, I'm also feminine, or yeah, or X, Y, and Z. You can be all these things. You can encompass all of the identities that you would like and still say that you are whole. And I think that is what made the environment of being in an environment with other queer people so awesome.
In the minority, and it's like, if the whole DEI training is focused on people that are not queer and or people that are white, like how is everyone else in the room going to feel if the person leading it is not like them? Like, where is that empathy piece?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jonathan.
Stuff like that definitely feels like they're just trying to cover their own backs, like they're doing it for like the trend, or it's
to
not
say they did it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look what we did, but it's not, it doesn't it doesn't affect change or anything like that, or have like a lasting impact.
And I think for anybody that is listening to this, that is a leader in their company or in their organization, and also to give it context, like I think we are speaking from the queer identity, and as people that are part of that community, I think we can speak of the broad strokes of inclusion and diversity, of many other things, but specifically in queer identity, coming from 4 queer people here, not a huge pile of people, but I will say that I think it, and what it sounds like to me from what everyone's been talking about, it's super helpful when there is leadership that understands the intersectionality of identity and understands what it means to feel a little displaced and to feel a little marginalized within a majority group of people, and then navigate it together. I think, one of the most beneficial things about exploring my leadership in such a safe and inviting place with you guys, was I was able to figure out like what line was I walking as a gay person, and also being a professional, and also navigating that, like, and you guys allowed me to make the mistakes that I made, and also be super gracious when I made those mistakes, and also celebrated like, oh, Jarrell, like it's actually okay that you do what you're doing. And it was beautiful for me to see, like, Crispin and Kathy walking out in Beyonce and Lady Gaga outfits, like in the middle of like a group of like 100 children, and doing like a lip sync, like I'm like, that's okay. Like having you guys and having a community that was like celebrating that and showing young people that, like, hey, there's so many ways that you can express yourself, there's so many ways and looks and personalities that you could possess, and it still be okay. I think that was like the magic that we were bringing as like having a queer cohort of like people in the workplace. But
I feel
go ahead.
And I also think that like there's people beyond our like group of 4, like our kind of inner circle, that also had those experiences at camp. 100%. Other staff members. I had a lot of conversations with people that are just kind of like, what we have here is something really special. And I'm not saying that like everybody who worked with us was like, oh, I'm gay, but like I think there really was a unique opportunity and a unique moment that everybody went through where it's like, wow, like I can be anybody I want to be. And I think you had a talent for seeing people, like even just really quiet people who are like just not, I'm thinking of some friends that we worked with that I'm just like, I don't know that you ever are in the spotlight. And like, maybe it's something you're somewhat uncomfortable with, but like, here you are being in the spotlight, loving it, feeling supported, and like expressing this in a way that like, I'm honestly not sure that you'd ever gotten a chance to, you know, like that's really special.
I'm
Just to
crying.
have-
I'm like thinking of a few of our like coworkers
yeah,
Me
and
you
like,
know
too.
what I mean?
and just
And like,
remembering like all these beautiful moments together.
like camp was a place for not just us to be queer, but it was a place for anyone to be anything they wanted to be. And I think that that was a message for that our kids felt.
Okay, that was so well said. That's exactly it. It's like Jonathan emphasized that message. Okay, so I'm thinking while you guys were talking, I was thinking about like what how to make this universal, because I try to think about being gay for me. Like, how do I boil it down to a more universal experience? Like, how does it make me feel, and how do other people feel who aren't queer? Like, how can they relate to that feeling? So for me, like, just personally, I'm an awkward person. I feel really awkward, and I think it's because there's this clash. This is related to work, I swear. There's this clash between me feeling too loud but wanting to suppress, my loudness so that I fit in, so that I'm more mainstream. And it feels like the workplace is often a mainstream sort of place. And when you feel more so like a marginalized figure, and I think we all feel marginalized in our own different ways, than others, but I think we all feel marginalized. And so we're trying to all come together, like all of our roads are joining in the middle, trying to be mainstream in a workplace. And that's inherently awkward. There's that clash that just makes it really confusing and and just awkward for me. And like Kathy said earlier, we could do this at a Home Depot. Like, that is perfect.
Honestly, it might be a little bit more fun at Home Depot if I'm
Yeah. Beep, beep. Yeah. So like, we really could have created that environment anywhere, but it's like, I actually felt mainstream. So whereas usually I feel more marginalized, I feel that awkwardness, that clash, this like, pulling of, the different parts of me. I didn't feel that at Galileo, because I felt so accepted and I felt so connected to everyone there. So like, I really just felt like I didn't have to suppress my loudness, and I didn't feel awkward. I felt more accepted. I felt more authentic. But I do think that's maybe like that's just an inherent thing with most workplaces, and trying to be professional, is you have to present yourself as mainstream when no one's mainstream. Like, off by themselves, they're going to be their own unique person, but like, it's just that awkwardness of
100%.
I think it raises the question of like, what does professionalism mean, and like, whose ideals, which identities were represented when professionalism was, and I think about like, the 50s, when it was men in the workforce and they were mostly white, and those were the ones with the professions, and they went to work and they, worked all day long, came back, yelled at their wife and kids, whatever, like, and just like, but like that idea of just being like that working man in the 50s with your briefcase and your no emotions and just like, you're a cog in the machine kind of thing. And just when we're constricted by the rules of professionalism, it's like we're not able to authentically show up as we are in a safe space unless that safe space is cultivated, and the definition of professionalism is shifted to encompass everybody's weird little whatever identities that have so many intersections, like, so I think that like that's what happened, is we had space to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And Crispin, it looks like
yes.
back. Okay.
I got it back. It was going back to what Jonathan was saying about being mainstream. For me, in my in the way that I grew up, a lot of it was just I was suppressing a lot of who I was growing up, so that's all I knew. But then having worked at Galileo, just going back to that feeling safe space and that leadership that you showed, ever since then, I try to carry on, try to blend in a little bit more of my personality into my work life and try to like mix it both. So now I'll show up with like nails painted, a little bit of, highlight just so that the sweat glistens and it's a little bit more comfortable. Prior Galileo, it wouldn't have been the case, it would have been very black and white, I guess. It's now the color seeping in.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay, yes. Oh my God, that is so important. Okay, so I was meditating about this yesterday, and and I completely relate to that. You have to be kind to yourself too. And I love that you are taking those steps. It's not like, you go from who you are and car analogy and you go 60 miles an hour in the next second. Is that it? So it's not like this complete 180 degree reversal, or like, this is who I really am. Like, you can take those steps to feel more comfortable. Because what I was meditating about yesterday was balance. Like, everything in life is about balance. And if you're too strict with yourself, like, you're out of balance. If you're too relaxed or whatever, or you don't care, then you're out of balance. But everything is about balance. So if you're feeling uncomfortable with who you are, but you like want to show up more, you can take those small steps to get you there. It's not like you have to show up at work the next day or whatever the next day, like, this is who I really am, because that could be scary. Like, you can find a more balanced way of getting there.
Like, queer identity is a spectrum that is vast and wide and is expressed in so many different ways and looks so many different ways. And so, I think if there's anything that we've learned in our experiences, it's like, show up the way that you want to show up, and we hope that someone's going to welcome you in and welcome you into that space as you are. And from what I'm hearing, as an overall takeaway, and things that we've learned as queer people and working together and as professionals, that it's so important to have someone to welcome you and someone that understands the environment that you're walking into. And it's also so important for that someone to also be like, hey, show up the way that you want to show up. And like, that's the space that you need to show up, like, it's okay. And then also, it's super vital for you to ask for that space also, not only like physically, but also to ask for it in your own heart and mind, to be like, hey, Jarrell, like, today I'm going to show up with nails, and like, with nails painted. I always have my nails on, if you guys want. And it's going to be beautiful. And the beautiful thing about having that mutual thing where it's like, yeah, I'm going to show up with my nails painted, and I know when I show up, like, the environment's going to welcome me in, because I have a leader, I have a community that I know it is going to make me feel safe. Again, from my own experience, it is super valuable when I am able to see, when I saw queer people express themselves, and then I was like, oh, I think it's okay for me to be that. Like, I think I can be that. I think I can do that. So, I think that's no pressure to like anybody out there that feels like it's like, oh my gosh, it's up to me to change the world as a queer person. No, I think it's up to you and us to be all of who we want to be, and hopefully that there's someone there to welcome you with open arms, as you are being all you want to be.
Someone said, show up for yourself. And really, that's all you can do. You can be an inspiration for other people, but really, I feel like all you can do is show up for yourself and be kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself. And yeah, if you're not ready, then you're not ready, and you can't force it. You really need to be on your own side. Like, you have to be on your own team, and you have to show up for yourself.
Kathy, do you want to share one last thing before we close?
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about what Jonathan said, and I think that, like, one of the things that makes queer identity so powerful is like the identity itself is what is revolutionary. Like it doesn't have to look a certain way or feel a certain way, or like you don't have to show up in a certain way. You just have to be you. And I think like going back to what Jonathan said, like if you are good with yourself and you're like kind of working towards that and you just show up as yourself, like that is what is powerful to people. And I think that like it wasn't that, I mean, you were being intentional to like create a safe space for us, but really what it was is you were just being yourself and being vulnerable with us. It wasn't anything crazy. Like it wasn't anything like you weren't manipulating us to feel safe. Like we just felt safe because we saw you being real, you know? And I think that like ultimately, if you're able to move towards a place where you continue to build your comfort with like being authentic and vulnerable with others, that in and of itself is what is going to create that space and like encouragement for others. It's not, you don't have to do anything extra. You just have to be yourself.
That was so well said. That was chef's kiss. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I thank you for sharing that. And I love that statement. Like it's our identity that is revolutionary. It's like the idea of our existence is already enough. And I think I've struggled a lot with that my entire life, that my existence is enough, that the person that I simply am without doing anything is enough. And I think for anybody that is a leader in the workplace, I think what I've learned as a leader is that like authenticity and vulnerability and leadership like all go hand in hand. And like I think as a specific example of that, it's like, you know, I came out to my team and was like, hey, I'm gay and this is the first time coming out and it's scary, but I'm going to try to be all of who I am, and I hope that you come on this journey with me. But I would not trade that experience with work with you guys for anything. So formative. And I say, like Jonathan, you said earlier, like if you're in an environment, a professional environment that doesn't feel safe, like I worked in professional environments where I didn't feel safe, obviously coming out, like it's okay. Like you do not have to like do that and like put yourself at risk and do those things. But I will say, like, I hope, and I pray that you find a person, a community, people that are going to celebrate you and are going to say like, yes, you are amazing simply because you are you. And I think that for all my queer friends and family and folks out there, sometimes the professional environment isn't the best place to do all of that, and you might need to find it somewhere else. But also, again, as we strive and move towards more inclusive and diverse workplaces, sometimes like what you guys were saying earlier, sometimes you got to show up and you got to make a decision to show up, because when you show up, other people also show up. And that is a powerful thing when a community of people are like, we're here and we're queer.
We're not going anywhere.
For all you people out there that identify as queer, like you are revolutionary in just who you are and what you do. Not even what you do, and just who you are. Period. Okay.
Woo! Move, yeah.
Finger claps.